Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Marie. It's so
I
good to
get
see
so
you.
excited. It's nice to see you too. I get really excited when I get to do these podcasts because I get to connect with everybody again, and it feels really nice to step back into the world of talking about what it is, that yoga therapy is. Um, and as you know, we had a little bit of a brief discussion that, this is the podcast to help people to know what yoga therapy is and to invite them into some of the lighter side of it. So we won't get too deep into research or the science, but how we came onto this journey in becoming yoga therapists and what it is that you specialize in and what sparks your passion.
Love that.
So why don't you give us a little taste of Amanda's journey to becoming a yoga therapist?
Yes. Okay. So the year was, I think, 2015 or 16. I'm not quite sure. I was working for, in my background is in hospitality. So I was working for a international yoga retreat center and working with a specific retreat leader. And I was reading her bio and she said she was a yoga therapist. And I was like, well, what is that? Like most people do. Right. So I started looking into it and it just blew my mind, the possibilities of what yoga could do. I hadn't even really had a very in-depth practice. I was practicing, but not like I did following that. So I knew that the first step was to become a yoga teacher. And once I became a yoga teacher, I became a very student, very much a student. And I still feel like I am in the seat of student forever and always. But it kind of dawned on me that there was a lot of benefits to the practices of yoga, and not just the physical movement, but all of it. It was like felt really great for my body, but then I started realizing all of these kind of emotional things that I was realizing, and it became an anchor for me in my life. It was during a time of uncertainty and anticipatory grief. My dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2016, and that's really when I dove into the practices and needed them. I really, really needed them to kind of bolster my kind of emotional roller coaster of dealing with his diagnosis and when he was going to pass. So he passed in 2020, and once that bridge kind of crossed over, I decided to invest in the yoga therapy training at Maryland University of Integrative Health. Graduated in 2023, just this recent past summer, and have been really loving the role of yoga therapist and enjoying to a certain degree telling people what it is, but it is also sometimes we want it to be known. We want it to be known that there is so much more to yoga than kind of what the Western world has shown us, through power yoga. And I live in Atlanta, so everything is hot power yoga in Atlanta. It's hard to get kind of out of that realm, but it's starting to expand, which I'm very excited about. So it's kind of a roundabout way into how I got to where I am now.
Nice. So in your journey, you spoke about why your practice was important to you.
Hmm.
Could you share a little bit more about that piece of it? Because it sounds like it was grounding for you and maybe a few other things.
Yeah, for sure. It essentially allowed me to spend time with myself and what I was feeling, but also move through the experience of what I was feeling instead of just kind of sit and cry. I was doing plenty of that. So to be able to be in a
Mm.
yoga practice and breathe and move and gain insights to what I was feeling, and to really just be a witness to my grief experience and allow it to kind of move through me was really powerful. Those moments of just being really truly present and accepting and honest of where you are was really liberating. I found myself in my past really not being able to be vulnerable or authentic. And the community that I built up when I first started teaching and really joining a studio held a lot of space for me. And even just my mat held a lot of space for me to just be who I was. And even if that was like super messy or having a lot of fun, like it was the spectrum of what I experienced on my mat was world opening for me, just completely allowed me to be one with who I was on a like higher level, as well as who I was living, or how I was living my life in this world, or in the world at that time. I was
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, so it was a little bit different, but
So it sounds like you're being very present.
yes, yeah,
Mhm.
present and just a break away from kind of the hustle and grind and expectations and stress of everyday life, and just a moment to pause and to be present and to be with what was ever showing up at that time.
Right. So as I listen to you, I'm thinking of all of the different elements that we provide for our clients as yoga therapists, because we do take pretty much almost everything that you spoke into, and bring it into our sessions. So we are looking, at the postures. So we do include the asana. We are looking at the energy. So we're looking at the breath and the mindful piece of it, being present, right?
Yes.
Um, I love that you actually even spoke about the community because that's another piece that we also address in yoga therapy. So, with those pieces that you were experiencing in your yoga community and then becoming a yoga therapist yourself, can you speak into any of those insights as a yoga therapist and what it is that you bring, to your sessions when you meet?
Yeah, for sure. I like to explain it to my clients and just regular people that are curious, that it's kind of like a Russian doll. So we have all of these layers of like, and there's a couple different ways. So in the yoga therapy framework, we have the 5 different layers of our human existence, of like what we're working with as human beings on this earth. We have our physical body, like you mentioned, the kind of the energetic body, the mental emotional body, the witness body, and then the spiritual body. And so some of that might not really resonate when you're talking to someone who's just working through depression, right? They don't really maybe not understanding exactly what that framework is. So I like to kind of use the Russian doll metaphor here to kind of show the what it is. It's like we have this physical body, but we also have all of these other like aspects to ourselves. It's not just like one part of us, and yoga bridges that gap, and like all the practices and the tools that we bring in bridges the gap between having a physical body and whatever's showing up in our physical body to how it relates to those other layers, how those other layers come into play too. So if we're feeling, you know, this is going to go a little bit deeper, but if we're feeling like we're experiencing depression and we're feeling kind of sluggish in the body,
Mhm.
but we're not recognizing that the behaviors are that we're actively playing a part in are exacerbating that sluggishness and that depression,
Mhm.
then we can't really get out of that hamster wheel. We're kind of just like continuously going on this in this like one kind of stuck place. So being able to use yoga therapy tools and practices help broaden that kind of viewpoint so you can observe your actions and behaviors um, through a lens of compassion, because we always need to bring that aspect in, and start to kind of shift and see like how we can maybe add this one practice of movement in every day, or of going outside for a walk, how that might kind of change this what you're feeling in your body, that's the heaviness might start to lift a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my example of bringing it in. There's so many other ones that I'm happy to talk about, but
Well, so again, what I'm hearing you say is, we're kind of connecting the dots here,
mm-hmm.
within that Russian doll analogy, like we get to help connect dots. We
Yes.
look at the client, and their healing in a more integrative form versus, oh, you were diagnosed with depression, so we're just going to look at the depression, right? Versus looking at all of the different things. And of course, as yoga therapists, just so I, put this in there, we do
Yeah.
not diagnose,
Right. Mm-hmm.
that we absolutely want to know, what diagnoses are, any medications and whatnot. But as that information comes to us, that's basically what we're seeing it as, right? We're just seeing it as information to help us understand what the client might be, dealing with, and then working within that framework.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought in, that compassion because yes, as yoga therapists, we're holding a healing space. There
Mm-hmm.
is no judgment. It's a compassionate, collaborative, relationship. So we really get to be there and basically walk the journey, with them for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's really about empowering them to like kind of peel back some of the like the veils and the like curtains of life circumstances to help them acknowledge their ability to do one small thing a day for themselves that helps them
Mhm.
attain a better sense of well-being within than their whole self, within not just that their physical body, not just their like energy, not just their mental state, but like all across the board, connecting those dots and weaving it all the way through. And that's what I love as a
Absolutely.
yoga therapist, and being able to do to address all of that, the whole person experience. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I do feel that when we get to do that, even at the level of just yoga therapy and being with, our clients, that is a broader healing, because then the person themselves, not only do they get to experience that, but they get to also reproduce that in their own lives as they go out and know that, you know, that piece of being able to hold space for somebody when they're going through something because we don't always know. Like when your father, was diagnosed, as a coworker, if I was one of your coworkers, I may not know what you're going through, but I may notice a shift, and being
Mm-hmm.
able to hold space, for you throughout the shift, right? And being there and being present, and stepping away from the judgments of, oh, Amanda's being different today, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
even if there is a judgment, going, well, why am I judging that?
exactly. Yeah. And then through these practices, we get to like be better witnesses to how we're behaving in the world and how we're living our lives and treating ourselves and other people. And it just starts to be a ripple effect of healing and just kindness.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, as you work with clients, have you found that there is a more focused area that you've been working within, something that might be a little bit more passionate for you?
Yeah, so something that we worked on in our program, in the internship aspect of our program, we were tasked with holding a yoga therapy group workshop. And as we were deciding like what topics to do, I was like, I don't know, I guess I have to do it. So I leaned into grief. Grief is something that I have a lot of personal experience with over the last 5-ish years. A lot of lives lost in my close heart space. And it terrified me to do it. But the thing that I didn't have when I first when I first experienced loss through my dad's death was like didn't have any support. Everybody just kind of was like, hope you're okay, here's some food, and then like left me alone. And grief can be so much like that, so isolating, such like rocky terrain that people aren't exactly sure what to say, and like how to hold space for you and what to do. Some people can be really overbearing. Some people can be really like too elusive. So what I didn't have was that like just sense of support and like, how do I move through this? So I opened myself up to offering grief, yoga therapy for grief and loss, and have worked with several groups since then. And it's a really beautiful experience. It's very rewarding for me to be able to hold space for people going through it. And right now I do like 12-week support groups. They're like community groups, but we do it through the lens of yoga therapy. So we come in and we kind of share how we're feeling, and then we do a practice, and then we reflect and kind of try to process kind of whatever came up for us, and then have that space to hold for each other. So it's, you know, strangers coming into a group, and it's the same
Mhm.
group for all 12 weeks, but they really start to bond and create that sense of support outside of this space too, which is really beautiful. And I think as long as we can start like kind of those connecting those dots out in the world of like, we have people we can do this work with. That's a really beautiful part of this, and building that sense of community is really important to me, because we need people to hold space for us and to be able to talk about the hard things and to be messy and to allow our grief to be witnessed, because it deserves witnessing.
It does. It absolutely does. You know, one of the things that came up for me is something I read a long time ago. You know, the only things that are certain in life are death and taxes. You know?
Yes.
But it's interesting that, you know, one, we, you know, with both of them, we're like, ah, but specifically what you were saying about, you know, the comfort level with people when it comes to death, right? Um, some people can come in and try to like, fix things, right? You know,
Mm,
other people are so scared of that idea of mortality that they just fall off the planet, right?
yep.
I personally have found that I basically just tell people, I don't know what it is that you're going through, but if you need anything, I'm here,
Mm,
because it is such an uncomfortable feeling for me, because it's not something that I've really experienced in my closer circle. Like I've, you know, been around that, but it hasn't necessarily been super
mm,
close. And so there is that fear of what it's going to feel like. It's the fear of not being able to provide enough support. It's the fear of not being there enough, you know, for somebody that I dearly care for. You know, so there's a whole, you know, overwhelm for me.
mm,
So to know that you can essentially take this experience that was so hard for you and turn it into a gift for others is exactly why I named this podcast The Alchemy of Healing,
mm.
because
Yeah.
we're moving through and we're transitioning and providing a space for healing from a space that maybe we walked through too. So it may not be the same, but it's something that we can share. So
Yeah. I think
thank
that's
you for
the, yeah, thank you. And I think that's something that's so beautiful about doing work in this field of trying to help people heal and feel better. And it's not, there's not like an end point. It's just, we are, like you said, walking the path along, and we're walking our own paths. We all have our own stuff. I mean, I have shied away from friends that have gone through loss because I didn't know exactly what to say, even though I've been through it.
yeah.
I have a professional like level of comfort doing it with clients. Sometimes when it's closer to home, it's like my heart is like, it can be overwhelming, right? And there's also the part of being a therapist and having compassion fatigue. We have really big hearts because we've been there, and we want to help, and we want to offer our compassion and love to people, and our what some might be calling gifts or skill set, whatever, to others. And it it comes and it goes, and it's part of the walk. It's part of the walk of discovering our unique abilities to show up and to do the work and to sometimes take a seat and rest.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. So you did bring up over this 12-week series that there are certain things that you cover. Could you speak a little bit more into each of these elements and why they're used?
Yeah, so we go through like different elements of like the like yoga therapy tools. So we'll do some like movement and processing and figuring out like, does fast paced movement serve me when I'm grieving, or does a slower pace serve me when I'm grieving, or does like, do I need some like nervous system rocking or more somatic practices that are a little bit more nourishing? So it's really a practice of discovery so that people can build up these toolboxes for themselves to take with them. So again, the movement piece, and then we find breath practices. Some breath practices may work for some people, they might not work for other people. And that's the thing about yoga. The difference between yoga and yoga therapy is that it's very personalized in yoga therapy. So when I have these groups, half of them may really love like sun salutations, and half of them are like, I just need to be in child's pose. So I'm going to address each of them individually and put them where they need to be, and also be there for them to change it. If something happens
Mhm.
and shifts inside of them, they might be like, you know what, now I'm ready to go into a heart opener. And we're there to explore that. So we do a lot of meditation and a lot of self-reflection work. So this could be journaling, it could be sharing, it could be, we do a lot of Brene Brown work in my office and in my practice. So she has the 2x2 check-ins where we really just take a moment to check in, feel how our body feels, feel how our emotions are feeling for that
Mhm.
particular moment. And we do that at the beginning and at the end of every session. So it's a way to check in a quick way. But then we also have these like maybe interoceptive kind of inquiry practices where we're in a pose or in a meditation, and then some questions will come through, and then you take a minute to like journal about what came up for you.
Right.
So it depends on every person, but that's where the majority of kind of what we explore in those group settings. It's a lot of sharing and being able to process aloud.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm going to walk backwards a little bit here.
Yeah.
So for those of the listeners who may not know who Brene Brown is,
Mm.
I personally am a huge fan of her work as well, because in a point in my life, vulnerability was not something that I was very easily into. I
Mm.
created quite a big set of walls around myself, and so going through and doing her workbook and her program, it really helped me to come back into my own space of being vulnerable and to actually realize that there was quite a bit of courage behind that. How did you hear about Brene Brown, and why is it that you use her work?
I mean, same. Like I saw her YouTube TED Talk about vulnerability, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I needed this so much. And so that was at the burgeoning of me becoming like this newer version of myself, where I was investing in this field of yoga and wellness, and um, recognizing the courage it does take to be open and to share yourself with the world is like, it's a really big step. It's a really, really big step. And it takes a lot for, um, not for everybody, but it takes a lot for a lot of people to step into that, to their full versions of themselves, because we have all these external messages that are saying we're supposed to be something else.
Mhm.
And it takes
Internal
courage.
messages as well.
Yes, yeah, true. And it takes a lot to just kind of show up every single day and just try to be your most, true self. And I started working in a psychotherapist office as the bodywork component through as a yoga therapist a year ago, and um, we do a book, kind of a book club. We took her book, Dare to Lead, and
Mhm.
there's a workbook that goes along with it. So we have broken it down into sections and done all of that as a team. And it has been really, really helpful, not only on a professional level, but also on a personal level. Because of that, I've now gone and done her Atlas of the Heart and all of, I keep diving into more Brene Brown because I just can't get enough.
Maybe we should do a podcast with some Brene Brown.
Yes, I love it. Yes,
Also, as you were talking about the physical poses and the breathing, one of the things that you brought up, and I really would love to just kind of bring this in right now, is this idea of in the physical poses, right? Like some people are going to need to move that energy through much in a more fast paced, as you said, series of poses, right? Other people may need just to be in child's pose. Some people may need more support, using the bolsters, the blocks, the straps, right? Um, and along with the breath work that you're talking about, everybody, a little different, right? I think this is an important thing to bring up because just as you and I are very unique as yoga therapists, all our clients are going to be very unique. And we do address that. It's not a one size fits all. We definitely key into the things, even when we're doing group work, we do individualize it within the bigger group. But that is one thing that yoga therapy does provide is an understanding that as your unique person comes in and says, these are the things that I'm finding challenging in my life, yeah, we may do mindful practices, and some people might go, oh, this is a mindful practice. Like, yeah, but which one is going to serve you the best? Which one is going to help you to be more self-reflective and come to the healing that you need to come to, or the understanding that you need to find within yourself? You know, if you say, are somebody who's listening to outside voices that have become internalized voices, around maybe you're not good enough, or I can't do that, right? So we get to help work and individualize these different practices. Um, and one of the things that I personally so went through becoming a yoga therapist is I laugh at this every time I think about it because as we, were going through our courses, I came in being a hatha flow instructor, so things were very, very fast,
Mm.
um, and immediately came in with an injury on my shoulder, which was stress related, but began to really feel and learn why props were so important. And it actually began my personal journey into understanding, which I again thought was really interesting for me, my own personal um, journey into understanding that these inanimate objects were creating support for me and I could cross other areas of my life and start finding support in other areas, like the yoga cohort that we had, right? And how healing that was for me, who, was somebody who tended to do a little bit more self-isolation when I was struggling in things. So, I think it's a beautiful way to work with people to be able to find what it is that supports them, individually, not just slap a band-aid on and be like, okay, see you next week.
Right. And it's such an awesome reflection too. And I think that it also starts to open up and like kind of rewire some beliefs that you have in your head, right? So like then the internal dialogue starts to change a little bit, or monologue, I guess. I don't know. It depends on how many voices are in there. I have a few. So you start to like, oh, you start to question those things and get really curious about it. And it's like, oh, I don't actually like this isn't bad or wrong that I need to use blocks here. Blocks just give me a little bit more like space, and like who doesn't need a little bit more space right now?
Right.
Which I love that, and it starts to really trickle into other areas of life, and that's part of the path.
Hmm.
Mm.
And you brought up the rewiring piece, because part of what does happen within the yoga therapy um, modality is that we can help people to repattern their nervous system. Would you like to speak into that?
Yeah, I love it. So I will use my like depression example from earlier. So
Hmm.
it's like somebody might have gotten this diagnosis of having depression of some sort, and then they're automatically like, oh,
Yeah.
they just get heavy, and they kind of, it's almost like you can succumb to it and
Hmm.
let it kind of define you. And through yoga therapy and yoga therapy practices, the thing is that because we're not just looking at your diagnosis or your symptom,
Hmm.
we're helping you reconnect to all those other layers that you have and witness the fact that you can have joy in your life. You can find things that you delight in, and you can create more of that. And to like kind of reframe that, like, like I am not depressed. I just am experiencing depression. Right. So changing just even that belief or that statement in your head and your mind can then rewire some of the patterns that are like, well, then I'm lazy, or I'm never gonna get out, like I just can't get out of bed, or I don't have the energy to do things. Like that might be like true in a moment, but that's not true across the board. That doesn't define your entire life experience. You can shift out of that, but you have to shift some stuff up here first. And as far as the nervous system goes, it just requires a little bit of like kind of an energizing, a little pick me up. And we can do that through breath. We don't even have to do it through movement. You can do it through standing outside and getting some sunshine and just like being in nature. There's a lot of things, and it's dependent on the person, that can start to kickstart those little like bugs in your brain that are like, ooh, this is curious. I want to like, ooh, delight. Here's a delight. I like this, and then you start to find these little lights that go off everywhere. And that is what the work is. It takes a while, and it takes some commitment and accountability, but you can get there.
That's, I love that. Yes. It is something that I do share with, clients when they come in, that there's going to be a little bit of repatterning. And I don't necessarily delve too much into the science behind it, but I do just want to kind of drop this in right now, that there is a lot of science right now, a lot of research, that basically helps to support the work that we do. Um, we ourselves did, some research work, lots of
So
research
much.
work.
So much.
Yeah. So we do understand the research behind it. So just dropping that in, that what we do specifically, that I can attest to, is that for those of us that have graduated from Maryland University of Integrative Health, our background is in research and the supporting research that helps to bring an awareness as to why yoga, which has been around for what, 6,000 years, you know,
Mm-hmm.
why the elements of yoga and its sister science, Ayurveda, actually do work. There
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of research now to show that piece, which, one of these days I'll have to, do something podcasting about that. But for now, just keeping it really simple,
You could do
you
like a
know,
little mini episode, although that would probably end up being way longer to do all the
right.
science stuff.
I think we'd have to do like a 2-hour podcast on, like, just the breath work.
Yeah,
Just,
truly, truly.
yeah, yeah. But it is something that I do want to let people know, is that yoga therapy isn't just something that somebody made up recently. It's been around for quite a while. And there
Mm.
are yoga therapists that did not go through our program that might be steeped a little bit more in traditional, yoga therapy. But specifically for, like you, myself, like, we are certified through Yoga International Yoga.
I know it's
International
hard.
Association of Yoga Therapy.
Letters and words
Um,
are just hard
yeah,
sometimes.
right. And that our program specifically
Hmm.
is in the sciences. So um, you had said that there was a little practice that you would be interested in sharing.
Yes, yeah, it is a sweet little meditation to honor grief. It's not always it's not super lighthearted, but it is heart opening, and it is kind of just sets aside some time for us to witness our grief and to hold ourselves in compassion. So I'm happy to offer that now.
Yeah, I just want to preface it a little bit with, for the things that are happening worldwide, for the friends and the family that we may know, you know, um, this is something that I hope that people can share
Yeah.
because grief is something that we all deal with grief. We absolutely all deal with grief. So thank you for bringing that to us today.
Yeah,
Okay, so I will
absolutely.
let you.
Beautiful. Thank you. For those listening or listening now or listening later, go ahead and find a comfortable seat. And that could be laying down. It could be like laying in your bed. It could be laying on your couch. It could be sitting in a comfy chair or on the floor, whatever feels nice. If it feels safe for you to close your eyes, let your eyes close, or you can softly drift them down towards kind of just the space in front of you to hone in on this kind of presence that you have the power to cultivate just by cutting off the stimulus of the outside world and just pulling yourself inward a bit. So, taking a couple of moments to get comfortable and start to watch your breath. Watch your breath as it moves in and moves back out. Feel the sensations of the breath. Parts of the body might be changing their shape, maybe the temperature or texture, any other qualities of the breath that you notice. Allow any observations just to be in your awareness. And then bring your awareness to the center of your chest. This is representative of the energetic heart space. And just kind of tuning into the heart space and observing the qualities that arise there. Might be a landscape that you're envisioning. Maybe there's colors, other images, or words, even that are kind of surfacing as you allow your attention to rest at the center of your chest in the heart space. And you might even invite a palm to the center of your chest, one or two, just to kind of add in a little warmth and sensation of comfort and support to the heart space. It's almost like you're kind of just holding a dear and tender friend. Keep breathing and acknowledge any grief that might be present in your life. It might be loss related, it might be related to the events of the world that are hard, rights being uh, diminished and people's livelihoods being taken away. It's a lot of hardship in the world far, far away from us, but also really near to us. Just keep breathing as that comes to mind, as it surfaces. Do you feel any sensations arise, any emotions? And just allow whatever's coming up to come up layer by layer. It might be tears, sadness, anger. There might be a temperature shift or a physical sensation in the body. And continue to breathe through it. It takes tremendous courage to hold space for grief for yourself and your life, or maybe holding space for others that are experiencing deep grief. Recognize this pain and allow it to show you your strength and your tenderness. Continue to breathe. Holding the heart and breathing, bearing witness to your grief. And continue to breathe as you infuse each breath into your heart with gratitude. Gratitude for helping you realize your capacity for love, as well as your ability to do hard things, to hold grief. Honor this grief and let it reveal to you the wisdom of your heart, the wisdom of your spirit. Take a few deep breaths. Maybe open mouth exhales to kind of sigh out and release. It might be audible, it might be silent. Start to come back to the sensations in the body. Maybe starting to blink the eyes open, letting in some light, taking in the environment. And take your time. There's absolutely no rush to bring in the space around you. You rub your heart a little bit. And I encourage anyone that that resonated with to take some time to maybe reflect, journal, write some things down that came up for you, and to repeat that practice, to repeat holding space for yourself and holding on to your heart.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was absolutely beautiful. I love that even in the meditation, you've spoken to the different types of grief, that it can be far, close. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was absolutely beautiful.
there's so many layers and so many levels and complexities to grief, and it's all valid and it all deserves witnessing. There's
Mhm.
often this like kind of comparative suffering or comparative like value that people want to place on it. If you lost your dog, if you lost a person in your life, if a person
Mhm.
that you love lost someone that they love, that's all valid. If you are going through divorce or a relationship ending, it's all valid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think it's important to also put in there that for people who, may have a diagnosis of depression or PTSD or complex PTSD or complex trauma, to really understand that, some of the underlying pieces that might be related to grief, there are people that they can reach out to, whether it be a yoga therapist or, a general practitioner who can help to kind of point them in the right direction, that there is resourcing out there. Um, and hopefully, the resourcing that they find will help them to build, their own toolbox of inner resourcing, because that is, pretty much what we do is we help them to have that inner resourcing to find their ability to be a little bit more balanced
Mm.
um, in the grief as well as in the happiness. So I think sometimes people don't realize that they can hold the space for both, right?
Mm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the piece of it that I emphasize over and over again, is that you can be both. You can be both, and you can have so much strength and so much tenderness at the same time and still be a whole, complete person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I would even venture to say that makes you even more whole and more
Yeah.
complete to be able to
Hmm.
feel into, the whole spectrum of emotions and
Yeah.
feelings within the body, outside of the body, and the head,
Right.
wherever they may be. So,
Mm.
Amanda, I am so grateful and appreciative of you joining me today. Is there anything that you would like to bring in as we close?
Really just kind of touching on what you just said, and goes for everyone, is like, if you are dealing with something, you just don't know exactly like how to go about processing it or even talking about it, seek out support. I mean, yoga in general is great. Yoga therapy can help you really dig deep into those layers and connect some of the dots for you to help kind of navigate your path forward, and kind of help you be present and
Mhm.
accepting of what is here and now, and how you can take the next steps ahead, even if they're really uncertain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely want to add in there at your own pace, because I
Yeah.
think that the idea of digging deeper for some people can be really scary. And so, again, going back to that unique, individualized piece of yoga therapy, is we are aware that we may need to slow things down or pick things up, depending on who it is that we're working with, right?
Exactly.
But just to know that even from a yoga therapeutic way of dealing with trauma or grief, um, anything actually, is that there is the ability to kind of slow things down if need be. So not to
Always.
be worried
Yeah.
that we're digging too deep, too fast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and grief tends to be a pretty like deep topic. It kind of gets to the root of our depths, the deepest oceans that we have in our heart.
Mhm.
So know that even in grief support, it could just be like sitting next to somebody on a park bench, not talking. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Okay. I know that we already have plans to do another podcast together, so I will see you soon.
Yes, so
Okay.
excited.
Yes. Oh, actually, one more thing. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Amanda Burtch Wellness. And I think you can link that in the notes so
Or
that
in
way
the
people
notes?
see the spelling. But that's where you can find me on the internet. And then I practice in Atlanta, Georgia, but I also practice virtually. My group that I work with is called Kula Wellness Group. It's Kula. So Kula Wellness Group. And I think that link is in the notes as well. Otherwise, come and find me in ATL. I'm around.
Thanks
Yeah.
again, Amanda.
Thank you
Talk to
so
you
much,
soon.
Marie.